two things I want to talk about, one which leads right into the other. First of all, we finished doing an audiobook for Sarah K. Wilson called Summer Night, Bridge of Legends, Book 1. We really enjoyed making the audiobook. By the time this episode comes out, I assume it will be released in the Amazon store. It's not quite yet, but by the time this comes out, I'm sure you'll be able to just go get it. Hopefully Patrick will have posted a link in the description below. I'm pointing at my legs. That doesn't really help.
The podcast
on a podcast. But yeah, hopefully you can go just check that out. We had a lot of fun doing it. It was a great book. She supported us before with an ad. I don't know if I would have no idea what episode that was, like back in the hundreds. Put up an ad for Dragon School, which we really enjoyed.
Yeah, it's really fun, young adult style fiction. But I think Summer Night in particular had a lot of head nods rather to Wheel of Time. I thought I'd give that a shout because that might get this audience interested.
Totally. Like I said, if you're used to listening to our voices, if you want to hear Patrick read for 2.5 hours, 7.5 hours, if you need something to fall asleep to, please pick up this book. Support us by supporting the authors who support us.
Yeah, go check out the book.
Patrick, I know you had a lot of fun making it. What did you sort of expanded some of your vocal roles a little bit while you're making this? Did you want to talk about that at all?
I definitely learned a lot. I mean, this was our first ever audiobook that we produced, just Seth and I. So there's definitely some learning curves. Like you said, I had to learn to differentiate between characters while reading their lines, especially in a rapid conversation where that's important. But also just finding this author's, how should I say, swing, how the rhythm of the words work. Because I definitely remember the first couple of hours, I kind of struggled to find her where there's natural pauses in sentences and things. But by the end, I felt like I had a pretty good read on what she was going to do. And when you're just reading, free flow reading from a book, I don't know what the next word's going to be, So it's hard to make the sentence flow nicely. It's something I'm getting better at. But it's a lot of fun. I wish this was, we could do this kind of thing all the time. By the way, if you have a book that you're writing and need an audiobook produced, contact us at whatspoilers@gmail.com.
And Sarah would be more than happy to give you a review, and she'll tell you we are freaking awesome to work with. So
we're so awesome.
We are awesome. That being said, the other people I want to shout out some support for is Michael Kramer and Kate Redding. They have been fantastic. And if you are listening to this podcast, you have most likely listened to the audiobooks they've produced. Or at least
the Wheel of Time audiobooks.
The Wheel of Time audiobooks. But the thing about audiobooks is it's almost always a flat fee. So you do your work, you get paid by the hour, and then you're done. And that means that despite all the hundreds and thousands of people out there who are buying Wheel of Time audiobooks, Michael and Kramer and Kate Redding aren't really making any money off of it. So what they did is they went out and they found an open source novel. They did a double version of The Prophet by Khalil Gibran.
Nin says hard G.
The Prophet by Khalil Gibran. And they did part 1 with a music underscoring with a German sound designer, and
music.
Then part 2 is just their voices. It's going to be released on Audible on January 14th, and then 12 weeks later, it'll be available everywhere and on CD.
And like Seth said, if you listen to this podcast, you probably listen to the Wheel of Time audiobooks and or a bunch of the Brandon Sanderson audiobooks. They also do. They're very talented narrators who were kind enough to do a call-in visit to our spoiler con, and they're just really nice folks, and we want to support them.
And this is a way where they get the money, because this is an open source book. It's nearly a 100-year-old novel at this point, so it's entered the public domain. Any money that you're spending on this audiobook goes directly to Michael Kramer and Kate Redding, which is not true of any of the other novels that you've purchased with their voices. If you appreciate what they've done for the fantasy landscape and the fantasy audiobook novels, which are fan-fucking-tastic, go buy this book, check it out.
Go forth and Google.
And support the people that entertain you, and who are just also just wonderful people. We loved having them for that interview. That was great.
This is the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. Your hosts are Seth Jacobson and Patrick Hyler.
Hi, I'm Seth.
And I'm Patrick. Chapter 34, A Silver Arrow. And our symbol is the Twisted Ring Ter'angreal, the Dream Ring. Which should be obvious in a moment. Elayne had the cooking that evening, which meant that none of the food was simple, despite the fact that they were eating on stools around a cook fire, with crickets chirping in the surrounding woods, and now and again, some night bird's thin, sad cry in the deepening darkness. The soup was served cold and jellied, with chopped green ferris sprinkled on top. The light knew where she had found ferris, or the tiny onions she put in with the peas. The beef was sliced nearly thin enough to see through, and wrapped around something made from carrots, sweet beans, chives, and goat cheese, and there was even a small honey cake for dessert. It was all tasty, though Elayne fretted that nothing was exactly the way it should be, as if she thought she could duplicate the cook's work in the royal palace in Camelin. Nynaeve was fairly sure the girl was not fishing for compliments. Elayne would always brush away compliments and tell you exactly what was not right. Tom and Julian grumbled about there being so little beef, but Nynaeve noticed that they not only ate every scrap, but looked disappointed when the last pea was gone. What she cooked, for some reason, they always seemed to eat at one of the other wagons. When one of them made supper, there was always stew or else meat and beans so full of dried peppers that your tongue blistered. They did not eat alone, of course. Luca saw to that, bringing his own stool and placing it right next to her, his red cloak spread to best effect, and his long legs stretched out so that his calves showed well, above his turned-down boots. He was there almost every night. Oddly, he only missed the nights when she cooked. It was interesting, really, having his eyes on her when a woman as pretty as Elayne was there, but he did have his motives. He sat altogether too close. Tonight, she moved her stool 3 times, but he followed, without missing a word, or seeming to notice, and he alternated comparing her with various flowers, to the blossom's detriment, ignoring the black eye he could not miss without being blind, and musing over how beautiful she would be in that red dress, with compliments on her courage thrown in. Twice, he slipped in suggestions that they take a stroll by moonlight, hints so veiled that she was not entirely sure that was what they were until she thought about it. "That gown will frame your unfolding bravery to perfection," he murmured in her ear, "yet not a quarter so well as you display yourself. For night-blooming dara lilies would weep with envy to see you stroll beside the moonlit water, as I would do, and make myself a bard to sing your praises by this very moon." She blinked at him, working that out. Lucas seemed to believe she was fluttering her lashes. She accidentally hit him in the ribs with her elbow before he could nibble her ear. At least, that seemed to be his intention, even if he was coughing now and claiming he had swallowed a cake crumb the wrong way. The man certainly was handsome. Stop that. And he did have a shapely calf. What are you doing looking at his legs? But he must think her a brainless ninny. It was all in aid of his bloody show. I don't think it is, Nynaeve. I don't think it's all for the show. I think he's into you, dude. I mean, sure is, got some gumption there. He's sure is trying.
You know that movie, He's Just Not That Into You? This is not that movie. Also, you notice she's like, he's actually kind of cute. Both her and Elayne have been away from their men for a long time.
He sure does look good, but I'm not looking. Okay.
Is that like perfectionism?
Yeah. And I think that's a sign of someone who actually knows what they're doing in the kitchen, that this didn't come out quite right, or this meat is a little drier than it should be in this dish, you know. It means you know what you're doing, I guess, in a sense.
In a sense, but she's also making, like, licorice jelly soup, which is maybe not the tastiest thing in the world, but, you know.
Yeah, is ferris supposed to be like fennel, or?
That's what I thought. Actually, I was thinking fennel when you said ferris. So actually, maybe. I don't know. Maybe a fennel. The jelly turns me off, but maybe like a...
Cold soup is a thing.
It is a thing.
Yeah. It's not my favorite either, like gazpacho and stuff. I'm not too squeamish. I can eat pretty much anything, but something about cold vegetable mash just doesn't... I always think, like, this isn't properly prepared.
I'm nodding.
There's some instinct in me. Yeah.
But I trust Tom and Julian because they cook the way I do. Stew or meat and beans so full of dried peppers. Yep.
I do a good amount of that.
Yep. I'm like, oh yeah, that sounds delicious. And they really like Elayne's cooking, so I'm down. I'm down with Elayne's cooking. But nobody, and I mean nobody, likes Nynaeve's cooking.
I was going to point that out because I think in one of the recent episodes, in the last few that came before this, we were talking about Nynaeve in her head accounts herself a pretty good cook. And I was kind of saying, like, is she, though? Do we have any? And here's our evidence right here.
Absolutely not.
Nope.
And Nynaeve accounts herself a pretty good everything, whether she is or not.
Apparently she really can only heal people and grind her medicines, basically. Well, she's a great tracker. She's got skills. And just so tough.
Here's my question. Do you think she'd be a good driver?
No. Angry, erratic, be pulling over to yell at people all the time.
Thinking she should cut in front of everybody. But she'd be like, yeah, I kick ass. I get in front of everybody. It's like, that's not being a good driver. And I love that, like, also Val and Luca. The only nights when he's not there is when she cooked. But other than that, he's flirting.
Yeah, and we see in a bit, I don't know if Elayne's trying to be funny or not, but Elayne says... Really, you should not encourage him. She also says, I'm skipping a bit, I may be younger than you, but sometimes I think I know more of men than you ever will. For a man like Val and Luca, that coy little flight of yours tonight was only asking him to keep pursuing you. If you would snap his nose off the way you did the first day, he might give up. You don't tell him to stop. You don't even ask. You kept smiling at him, Nynaeve. What is the man supposed to think? And then she basically says, you haven't smiled at literally anyone else in a week.
And this thing, Nynaeve is clearly flirting with Luca, right? She doesn't want to admit it, and this is from her perspective, but she is flirting with Luca.
I mean, she's not...
And Elayne calls her out on it.
She's not saying, like, hey, sorry, not interested. Like, she hasn't done that, so I don't know.
She's acting a lot like Fael around Perrin, which is very flirty from a certain point of view.
That's a very gray territory.
Mm-hmm. But that, like, you get on me, you make me have an emotional reaction. I'm making it look like anger, but maybe it's affection.
Yeah, well, what Elayne said made me think twice. Like, oh, maybe she... Guess if a guy keeps asking her to go for a moonlit walk, she ought to...
Also, she's checking out his legs. Like, I'm guessing he
and
noticed.
And smiling the whole time.
And smiling, right? Like, dude, if a girl's checking out my legs, I'm like... I'm like looking up for things I can get on a top shelf so I can go up on my tiptoes, right? Like, show off a little bit, flirt a little bit. Like, and not that there's anything wrong with flirting, even if you don't want to get together with somebody, but flat out denying she's flirting, that's wrong.
Well, it's interesting to see both perspectives, because Nynaeve doesn't seem to think she's doing anything.
No, of course not.
But Elayne's saying, like, you haven't done a single thing to discourage him, and you smiled a bunch.
And she's like, I didn't smile.
Nin says maybe she doesn't remember smiling, which I think is actually probably...
That's how memory works.
Possibly close to right on. Amused, even though he is a little annoying, maybe.
And I like that she claims she's holding her temper with him when all she's doing is flirting. There's no temper to hold.
You cannot hold the sun down at dawn, Elayne responds to her.
Well, is that like saying Nynaeve's temper is as powerful as the sunrise?
Yes.
It's just going to happen no matter what you do?
Heats the earth.
Changes night into day.
Burn your skin. Yeah. And they continue talking after they sent the boys away.
Sort of talking about the meeting in the World of Dreams with Egwene and the Wise Ones.
The Wise Ones have noticed, basically, that it always seems to be Elaine's turn when the Wise Ones are going to be there.
Gee, how did Nynaeve arrange that? And it's like, because Nynaeve's been going every other night, so that then it's like, oh, well, I've gone every night, I guess it's your turn. And it's like, yeah, when I have to meet with the Wise Ones.
And she's like, straight up making some stuff up. Like, she's said keeps saying she's too tired to go on whichever night that is because she's gone the other nights. And the wise ones are like, you know, going to the dream shouldn't make you tired unless you're not doing it right, in which case you should come to us for training. The kind of white lie that you tell without maybe even realizing you're really lying.
Yeah, because you're always kind of tired.
Oh, I don't know. I'm not really feeling it tonight, you know.
Yeah, I'm feeling kind of tired. Isn't that why we didn't record last night? I was feeling kind of tired.
Sure.
Yeah.
Elayne also mentions that Egwene at one point saw Birgitte, but is pointedly not bringing it up.
And we remember that when she was like, "What was that?" And
nothing.
Elayne was like, nothing. I can't tell you, and telling you I can't tell you is breaking a promise.
Yeah.
Clearly Egwene knows, but they still are keeping the letter of the promise, even if the spirit is long gone. And they do this bit of like, I wonder why the wise ones don't come to the White Tower. It must be just because they avoid Aes Sedai. And it's because Egwene's not supposed to be going to the White Tower. They think Egwene is going back to bed. That period of time is something she's totally hiding from the wise ones. But Nynaeve and Elayne don't realize it.
I can't think of another good reason why the wise ones are busy, also, to be fair.
Well, but yeah, I mean, they would absolutely be going. Egwene says she's hiding the visits to the tower from the wise ones. She's trying to go meet with her friends without having the wise ones looking over her shoulder.
Oh, yeah, that too.
She does that whole thing where if I had you in my study, in the Mistress of Novices study, I'd beat the crap out of you. So I don't remember.
They go meet
Elayne shows up there. They go meet there. You would think they would at least want to see the tower. Egwene doesn't even want to talk about it in front of them. If I seem to come close, she gives me such a look that you'd think she meant to hit me. And that's really because she doesn't want to bring it up in front of the wise ones, because the wise ones don't know it's happening. And if she does bring it up in front of the wise ones, Egwene is getting probably beaten, at least spanked.
At best.
Possibly thrown out.
Yeah.
And then we get some more hypocritical, well, when I say hypocritical, some more Nynaeve statements about, I'm not becoming an Aes Sedai, I just want to learn from them.
That's what that is, though, you see?
That's like Moraine's initial, from the very first encounter in Eye of the World, where Nynaeve is like, well, fine, I'll come with you, but I'm not going to the White Tower. And Moraine's like, mm-hmm.
Fine, I'll go to the tower, but I'm not becoming an Aes Sedai. Okay.
Okay. Fine, I'll become an Aes Sedai, but I'm just learning from them. I'm not going to be a real Aes Sedai. And don't you dare not call me an Aes Sedai. There's that whole period where she goes from, like, not wanting to be an Aes Sedai to being raised as one, but not being officially raised as one, and then she's all, like, offended when you don't call her Aes Sedai, which is such a 180 from Nynaeve, who, like, never would want to be called Aes Sedai at all, and the transition is so flawless, it's beautiful. Robert Jordan, mwah. And Nynaeve, just such a great character.
And then I just have Nynaeve settling down to sleep, because the night Nynaeve is set to go into Tel'aran'rhiod.
She goes to sleep thinking about Lan, wakes up in a very low-cut dress.
She describes, I liked that she described Birgitte as a combination of Baerlane and a tavern brawler.
I think Birgitte must be statuesquely beautiful.
Yeah, I think so, but she's kind of tough too, you know?
Blonde Gal Gadot. This is an interesting statement. I feel like we get a lot of little knowledge drops in this chapter. It's like, it might not be the most active chapter, but the knowledge here is really good. She had come to understand that only wild creatures had reflections here. But whatever the Stranchan woman claimed, it was hard to think that those huge... So, the idea that only domestic animals show up in Tel'aran'rhiod, and you can really see that in the circus, where, like, there's dogs and elephants and a few... and horses, which are all domesticated, and they don't show up in Tel'aran'rhiod. But then you have lions and bears and... a couple of the elephants are domesticated, but the other animals aren't, which is an interesting difference. I find it very interesting the elephants are domesticated.
Yeah, that's one of the few times that's pointed out, that Nynaeve has noticed, or we see in her mind that she's noticed only wild creatures had reflections here.
And then the next thing I have is Birgitte showing up saying, I found Moghedien.
I have found her. And Nynaeve basically begs, like, show me, like, take me. Can we hide? Will it be safe? All this. And Birgitte's like, no, not really safe. We can try to hide. And just stares at Nynaeve and wonders to make her decision if she wants to go or not. And of course, Nynaeve wants to go.
Yeah, she's not going to stop. Danger? No. Head first.
Of course. And we see Birgitte brings her to a place in Tel'aran'rhiod where they were standing on nothing. Infinite blackness all around. No way to tell up from down, and in every direction a fall that would last forever. Head spinning, she made herself look where Birgitte pointed. Below them, Moghedien also stood on darkness, garbed nearly as black as what surrounded her, bent and listening intently. And we see the group of four. So Lanfear, Graendal. Oh, is this Moghedien's? Are they spying on Moghedien, spying on Lanfear, Graendal, Rahvin, Sammael? Their
That's
little
correct.
Group? Okay.
Yeah. So there's four Forsaken having a meeting, Moghedien's spying on the meeting, and then Birgitte's spying on Moghedien and brings Nynaeve into that. And I kind of really like this meeting. There's a lot of information, like I said, in this chapter with this four Forsaken meeting about what they're doing. And I think it answers the elusive question of what was Mat's girlfriend doing with the dagger from Illianer?
Sammael. Yeah.
From Sammael. And why does she have that dagger, even though she acts at Rahvin, what appears to be Rahvin's direction?
So I think where you're getting at is it was likely a plan hatched by all four to attack and inflame Rand, the idea being to injure or kill Mat, inflame Rand, make him come attack Sammael and Illianer, and they know that Rand knows he's there. And while he's busy attacking Sammael, the other three are going to link and take him down.
I wasn't sure what the taking him down plan was. I thought it was mostly just that they were setting a lot of traps for him in Illianer.
Is there still the price on his head? Like, are they still trying to kill him?
I think so, yeah, because I think we are in the gap.
We haven't heard from Ishmael in a while.
At the end of The Dragon Reborn, Ishmael was trying to kill him, and Ishmael died. And as far as we know, up until Let the Lord of Chaos Rule...
I'm nodding. Yeah, that's the last time we heard.
We think they're trying to kill him. But up at the end of, like, Lord of Chaos, so I think until the end of this book, they are trying to kill him, and then we get new orders from the Dark One, which is, hey man, let's just let this be chaos. Let's let shit go crazy, and let's see if Rand can handle it.
Yeah.
But I think we're in between those two plans. Right now, we're just in, like, hey, there's no real single Forsaken in charge. Right now, everyone's advancing their own plans. You have this alliance between these four. You've got Moghedien spying on them. You've got Demandred over in Shara. And he's also training Taim right now and getting him prepared for the Dark Tower. You've got Semirog over in Shanchan land. You've got Messana in the White Tower. But nobody, I think, is really controlling and pulling all the threads. Everyone's off doing their own thing. Except for these four that are working together to try and do something with Rand. And I'm not sure if they're trying to kill him. That seems to be what they're trying to do right now.
Yeah, we've talked about this little crew before. I think probably 3 want to just kill him and be done with it. And Lanfear, of course, must have some double-cross thing happening. Because she doesn't want him dead. But this was all her idea. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Of course, we never see their plans play out all the way. I wonder what her motivation is.
Here's the quote. Okay, he will concentrate on you, the big man said in a deep voice. The big man is Rahvin. So Rahvin's saying he's going to concentrate on you in Illianer. And then the 3 of us, which is going to be Rahvin, Lanfear, and Graendal, are going to link and take him from behind. If need be, one close to him will die, which is Mat, plainly at your order. So that's, I think, where the dagger with the bees on it comes from.
Yeah.
He will come for you. So, yeah, that's really the plan right there, which is kill Mat with the dagger, infuriate Rand, have Rand come at...
He'd be attacking Sammael, and Rahvin's in the link.
And so either Graendal or Lanfear would be in control of that link.
Likely. Yeah, likely Lanfear, I would think. But I don't know what kind of rules they would follow. I also think Lanfear is stronger than Graendal, from what I can remember, but I don't know if they follow those rules. Modern, quote-unquote, Aes Sedai do, but would they follow the same kind of rule? I don't know.
No, not at all. And don't let Graendal ever hear you say that. She would never admit that Lanfear is stronger. And also, there's a question, is Lanfear just stronger because she had a secret Ter'angreal in the Age of Legends that she was hiding?
Until she got her moon belt? I like the theory.
I think I was disproven. Yeah, but I think I was disproven at some point, just because that's why she was always considered one of the most powerful Forsaken, even more powerful than a bunch of the men, when people were like, that doesn't make a lot of sense, because then she'd be so much more powerful than any of the other women.
I don't know.
Sakan is correcting us, saying that according to the charts, Lanfear, Semirhage, and Olivia, Seanchan, those are the three highest in terms of just raw power.
I'm nodding. Birgitte suddenly takes them away, and they're back in Tel'aran'rhiod at the managerie. And Nynaeve saying, Why did you bring us away? She's saying. And she also asks, did she see us? Did Moghedien see us? Birgitte responds, I never took my gaze from her for more than a moment, and she never moved a muscle, but I do not like being so exposed. If she had looked up, or one of the others... Nynaeve wrapped her shawl tightly around her shoulders, and still shivered. Rahvin and Sammael. She wished she did not sound hoarse. Did he recognize the others? Of course Birgitte had. It was a foolish way to phrase it, but she was shaken. Lanfear was the one hidden by her chair. The other was Graendal. Do not think her a fool because she lolls in a chair that would make a Senji no-room keeper blush. She is devious, and she uses her pets and rights to cause the roughest soldier I ever knew to swear celibacy. Graendal is devious, Moghedien's voice said, but not devious enough. Birgitte whirled, silver bow coming up, silver arrow almost flying to knock, and abruptly hurtled 30 paces through the moonlight to crash against Nynaeve's wagon so hard she bounced back 5 and lay in a crumpled heap, desperately. Nynaeve reached for Saidar. Fear streaked through her anger, but there was anger enough, and it ran into an invisible wall between her and the warm glow of the true source. She almost howled. Birgitte is left knocked out, far-ish away, 25 feet away, and Nynaeve is bound with air and blocked from the source, and Moghedien's about to do her evil character gloating thing.
Shortly after that, Moghedien moved to where Nynaeve could see her, between the quivering triangle of her arms. The glow of Sidar surrounded the woman mockingly. A detail from Graendal's chair, the Forsaken said.
Yeah.
I don't understand what she's referencing there. What is she saying, a detail from Graendal's chair? Is that how she saw Nynaeve? She saw a reflection? Oh, okay. DT says the way she's tied up in the flows.
Yeah, the way she's shaped.
Got it. Okay, I completely missed that. Thank you very much.
In some pose or something,
So how did Moghedien identify Nynaeve? How did she know she was being watched?
I don't know.
Do we ever get an answer to that?
I'm going to wait a second to see if anyone wants to yell one at us, but I got nothing. People are saying tar level pro. Sakan has a good question. Is Nynaeve actually cut off with a shield of spirit and bound by air? Or is it Moghedien's control of Tel'aran'rhiod? And if Moghedien is so proficient in Tel'aran'rhiod, why is she mimicking the one power instead of just binding her? I have no answer for that.
Sakan, that's just starting shit, and you know it.
Is channeling real in the dream?
Is channeling real in Tel'aran'rhiod? You're just asking the same damn question with more words.
It is a good question, and I don't know.
I do not know.
We do see in a moment, Moghedien gives us a couple of vaguish knowledge drops when she starts saying, I think I will turn you into a horse. It is quite possible. Here, a horse, a mouse, a frog. She paused, listening. A cricket? And every time you come to Tel'aran'rhiod, you'll be a horse, until I change it. Or some other with the knowledge does so. She paused again, looking almost sympathetic, rushing through. But no, I'd not want to give you false hope. There are only 9 of us now who know the binding.
I think the binding is a really important thing there. As to, it's some combination of Tel'aran'rhiod and one power that creates that binding.
She's telling Nynaeve, you are going to go get Elayne, you'll bring her to me. and this, that, and the other thing. And she says, you will shield her and bind her and bring her to lie at my feet. And she means here in Tel'aran'rhiod is what she's saying. Do you know why? Because some things are actually stronger in Tel'aran'rhiod than in the waking world. That is why you will be a glossy white mare whenever I bring you here.
So the way I think about that is that compulsion is going to be way stronger in Tel'aran'rhiod because your mind is way stronger in Tel'aran'rhiod. So if I can make you think you're a horse, not only do you think you're a horse, but you actually become a horse.
Yeah.
There's a sort of double compounding effect when using compulsion on somebody in Tel'aran'rhiod, where you're able to make them essentially enforce the reality on their own mind. They're actually, you're using both compulsion and their own mind to make their mind break. I feel like it's a form of Tel'aran'rhiod. Compulsion used in Tel'aran'rhiod is going to be this more powerful, more long-lasting thing, where basically every time you log in to Tel'aran'rhiod, it's going to kick in and say to your brain, hey, you're a horse.
I like that login. I totally know what you mean, though. Lay down with your Ter'angreal and wait for the login screen to...
Wait for the blue screen of sleep.
Loading.
Modem sounds while you... Is that a modem sound or is that snoring? That's Nynaeve snoring.
I brought up what Moghedien was saying because I also want to say I wish she gave us more. She gives us this one thing that's more powerful, but she makes it quite clear that there are other things you can do in Tel'aran'rhiod that would make them more powerful than doing them in the waking world. I'm curious as to what all those things are.
Anything to do with the mind.
Yeah. We do know a shield would work too. So even if somehow Elayne could wake Nynaeve, she would still be shielded.
I don't think so.
Isn't that how they get out of the Stone of Tyr? The girls?
No, because the woman never wakes up.
Or she's like half in, half out, right?
I think if she fully wake up, yeah, because that's the whole thing where she kind of can't move but kind of can because she's partially asleep. And I think if she'd fully woken up, she would have been able to get out. She wouldn't have been bound anymore.
You're probably right about the mind thing then. Because we know there's other things like that. For instance, holding someone in place in Tel'aran'rhiod is also possible. Unless
they can wake up. But then it's all about knowledge, right? Like, you can hold someone in Tel'aran'rhiod, but do you think Moghedien could hold a wise one in Tel'aran'rhiod? I don't think so. I think she can hold Nynaeve in Tel'aran'rhiod because Nynaeve doesn't know a lot about it.
There's that too. So someone more skillful or even just has more...
brain power?
Mind power. Yeah, I don't know what to call that. Will.
Egwene power. Two Rivers power? We should name it after the source. The source of all stubbornness in the Wheel of Time. Bella power. The creator is the source of the one power. The Dark One's the source of the true power. And then you've got Bella power. Truly the only three invariants in the Wheel of Time universe. You might think Bella power is the same as the creator power, but it's actually Bella power is what underlines both the one power and the true power. It's the united, uniform source of all power in the Wheel of Time universe. Bella is the creator and the Dark One, and one power to bind them. Yes, and one horse to bind them.
One horse to rule them all. I like that, Nin. Bella's like Tom Bombadil, powerful but sort of separate and different.
And yeah, I guess you really could. I mean, we say Bella power, but you could just say horsepower. This weave takes 10 horsepower.
One horseshoe to shod them all.
So they catch Moghedien monologuing.
Sweet, sweet revenge comes quickly. The other woman laughed. A delightful tale. I can almost see what fascinates Semerhag about breaking the spirit. Oh, you are going to provide me with a great deal of entertainment, Nynaeve Elmira. But first, you're going to bring the girl Elayne to me. You will shield her, and bind her, and bring her to lie at my feet. Do you know why? Because some things are actually stronger in Tel'aran'rhiod than in the waking world. That is why you will be a glossy white mare whenever I bring you here. And it is not only hurts taken here that last into waking. Compulsion is another. I want you to think of it for a moment or two, before you begin believing it your own idea. I suspect that the girl is your friend, but you are going to bring her to me like a pet. Moghedien screamed as a silver arrow suddenly stuck its head out from below her right breast. Nynaeve fell to the ground like a dropped sack. The fall knocked every speck of breath from her lungs as surely as a hammer in the belly. Straining to breathe, she struggled to make racked muscles move, to fight through pain, to Saidar. Staggering on her feet, Birgitte fumbled another arrow from her quiver. "Go, Nynaeve!" It was a mumbling shout. "Get away!" Brigitte's head wavered, and the silver bow wobbled as she raised it. The glow around Moghedien increased until it seemed as if the blinding sun surrounded her. The night folded in over Birgitte like an ocean wave, enveloping her in blackness. When it passed, the bow dropped atop empty clothes as they collapsed. The clothes faded like fog burning off, and only the bow and arrows remained, shining in the moonlight. Moghedien sank to her knees, panting, clutching the protruding arrow shaft with both hands as the glow around her faded and died. Then she vanished, and the silver arrow fell where she had been, stained dark with blood. After what seemed an eternity, Nynaeve managed to push up to hands and knees. Weeping, she crawled to Brigitte's bow. This time it was not pain that made tears come. Kneeling, naked and not caring, she clutched the bow. "I'm sorry," she sobbed. "Oh, Birgitte, forgive me." "Birgitte." There was no answer, except the mournful cry of a night bird. I wish I could do racked sobs for you guys, but I'm just not not prepped for that. Powerful, though, anyway.
I have to wonder if she uses the true power instead of the one power to rip Birgitte out of Tel'aran'rhiod.
I was wondering the same thing. What happens there looks a hell of a lot like a true power shift.
The night folded in over Birgitte?
Yeah, the air around them folds, but they're standing in darkness, so it stands to reason that that's why it's black, or that's why it appears that the night envelops her. It's just like the reality around her folding, which might also help explain what the hell happens to Birgitte here. You know, some exposure to the true power in the dream because Brigitte's there. Maybe it breaks her, I don't know what to call it, connection or tie to the wheel, and she just gets slapped out.
I have a lot to say about that, but I want to talk about it a little more in the next chapter, when we actually see Birgitte pop out on the other side in the real world.
Sure.
Yeah, I agree. There's some interesting connectedness, severing stuff going on. And I'm guessing that Moghedien couldn't have done it without the true power.
And I don't think it was intentional either. I think Moghedien is just desperately trying to escape at this point. I don't think that was some kind of a punishment.
Do you think she just lashes out because she has a... I don't know, I thought it was something she kind of prepared.
It's possible, I'm just saying that's what I think. I don't know if I'm right, but...
Now, I'll admit there's definitely some counter evidence. Moghedien was glowing, which is not generally what somebody does when they're pulling on the true power. And also, we don't even know if Moghedien has access to the true power. At this point, I don't know if anyone has access to the true power, to be perfectly honest. We know Moghedien uses it exclusively instead of using the one power. He always uses the true power. But other Forsaken sometimes have access to it. We see Graendal use it. We see... certainly some of the other, like Demandred, I think, uses it once.
Yeah, I seem to recall a good amount of the other Forsaken being able to channel like a trickle.
Yeah. At some point, they have been given access to it. All the current Forsaken.
DT just knowledge dropped that Harriet said that only 29 people have ever been granted access to the true power. That leads us to our little Liandrin bit here at the end.
Which is pretty much the end of Liandrin. I mean, she pops up a couple of other times as a servant, but as far as we know, she is forever... She never gets this shield off of her. She might as well be stilled from here on out.
Man, that is cruel. Of course, so is Liandrin and so is Moghedien.
And so are the Seanchan, which is where Liandrin ends up.
Essentially, Moghedien dramatically arrives, bleeding and dying, where Liandrin, Chesmal... there's another there, at least, of the Black Aja, the original 13.
And we last had this meeting where Moghedien shows up and, like, teaches them all a lesson and sends them off to, like, do her various tasks and really intimidates them all. And then at that point, Liandrin's like, ooh, I'm going to try again when I get a chance.
Of course.
Yeah, of course. And so this is Liandrin's chance to try again. And it doesn't work out really that well for her.
Not at all. Sammael. That's in the room at the moment anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Moghedien starts yelling at Chesmal that Am I getting that name right, by the way?
Chesmel? Yeah, Chesmel.
I think in my own head, over the years, I always said Ke with a CH. Case starts yelling at Chesmel. You have some small ability with healing. Do it right effing now. And there's a whole, like, Pulp Fiction scene. I don't know, man. Just jam it in her heart.
That's a nice... Yeah. That's a good reference. I like
but,
that.
like, the panic, I imagine, and blood everywhere. Yeah.
No one really knows what to do. But, like, imagine instead of a hot girl overdosing on cocaine, it was, like, a wild, ferocious animal murderer thing.
A bit more like that,
Yeah.
More blood. And also the kind of ever-present fear that you're about to revive an angry lion, you know?
Right, yeah.
They do it, but Chesmel, of course, only knows the traditional forms of healing, and it seems that she's not great at that either.
No, she's supposed to be a good healer.
Talking out of my ass? Yeah, I am. Okay.
She's just shitty at healing compared to Age of Legends folks or Nynaeve, but she's a pretty good healer for White Tower.
Gotcha. Well, in any case, so Moghedien is left weak, and it looks like Liandrin tries to compel Moghedien.
Yeah, she like takes everything she learned from her little shitty compulsion weave, plus what she learned from what Moghedien did to her, and is trying to like still basically be like, well, you're weak, and now I'm better, so this is a good shot. Like, if I'm ever going to get you, now's the chance.
Hit her while she's down.
Right. And Moghedien's like, yeah, I saw that coming.
Even as she did, Saidar seemed to fill Moghedien like a flood. Liandrin's probe died as the source was shielded from her. Doesn't work. Flows of air picked her up and slammed her against the paneled wall hard enough to make her teeth rattle.
I gotta wonder if after this scene, Moghedien went somewhere and like slept for like 48 hours.
I would think so.
Yeah. Between being healed the old-fashioned way and having to, use a bunch of power and flee. She probably went and crawled in one of her little hidey holes and didn't come out again for a while.
Trying to think of the next time we see her.
Well, she keeps coming back after the girls. So Moghedien gets used at the end of the book to take down Rahvin. They get to Saladar. They confront her in the World of Dreams. They capture her with the Adom. They give her the fork root in the World of Dreams. Then they use the real Adom on her later. But in the World of Dreams, before she wakes up, Nynaeve takes her and envelops Rahvin in a ball of fire, which saves Rand. So we definitely see Moghedien at the end of this book.
Gotcha.
She doesn't crawl into her hole for long. She's right back out again. She gets healed, and then she's like seeking revenge, looking for the girls in the menagerie. Pretty much right away.
But Moghedien, like you said, shields Liandrin in such a way that it can be tied and stay there virtually forever.
And it does, as far as we know. We don't get a final verdict on Liandrin, like we don't see her coup de grace, but she is a slave to Suroth when Suroth is killed. So we don't really know what happens to her after that. But she's just a normal old Daco Vale. She's not even collared. The shield is so effective that the Soldan don't even figure out that she can channel. They just treat her as like a shamed Daco Vale. Because remember when at the end of the beginning of the Hunt for the Horn, when Liandrin kidnaps the Supergirls and takes them to Suroth to be chained for the Shanchan, Suroth says, I will make you a slave. Well, guess what? She makes her a fucking slave.
Nice.
Yeah.
Can't say I'm mad about it.
Nope.
Liandrin's a jerk.
Yeah. So my assumption is either she ends up continuing to be a Shanchan slave or is killed because her owner is killed.
Moghedien says, "You will live, however much you think you might want to take your own life, and you will think of it. You will lie weeping many nights, wishing for it."
Basically compels her to not be able to commit suicide, no matter how bad your life gets. You can't kill yourself.
And then I just have the readout. Just more explanation and stuff about the menagerie. Liandrin is trying to beg, and Moghedien says, "If you cannot be more inventive than that, I will not listen. You will listen instead. I think what I have planned for you would delight Semerhag herself." Moghedien's smile was almost as dark as Tamael's. "You will live, not stilled, but knowing that you could channel again, if only you found someone to untie your shield. Yet that is only the beginning. Yvonne will be glad of a new scullery girl. I'm sure the Arene woman will want to have long talks with you about her husband. Why, they will enjoy your company so much that I doubt you will see the outside of this house during the years to come. Long years in which to wish that you had served me faithfully. Liandrin shook her head, mouthing no and please. She was crying too hard to force the words out. Turning her head to Sammael, Moghedien said, "Prepare her for them, and tell them they are not to kill or maim her. I want her always to believe she might escape. Even futile hope will keep her alive to suffer." She turned away on Chesmel's arm, and flows holding Liandrin to the wall vanished. Her legs gave way like straw, crumpling her to the carpet. Only the shield remained. She hammered at it futilely as she crawled after Moghedien, trying to catch the hem of her shift, sobbing brokenly, "Please, great mistress." "They are with a menagerie," Moghedien told Chesmel. "All of your searching, and I had to find them myself. A menagerie should not be too difficult to locate." "I will serve faithfully," Liandrin wept. Fear turned her limbs to water. She could not crawl fast enough to catch up. They did not even look back at her, scrabbling across the carpet after them. "Bind me, great mistress, anything. I will be the faithful dog." "There are many menageries traveling north," Chesmel said, eagerness to negate her failure filling her voice. "To Gildan, great mistress." "Then I must to Gildan," Moghedien said. You will procure fast horses, and follow." The bedchamber door closed on her words. "I will be the faithful dog," Liandrin sobbed in a heap on the carpet. Lifting her head, she blinked tears away to see Sammael watching her, rubbing her arms and smiling. "We could overwhelm her, Sammael. We three together could—" "We three?" Sammael laughed. "You could not overwhelm fat Yvonne." Her eyes narrowed as she studied the shield fastened to Liandrin. "You might as well be stilled. Listen, please." Liandrin swallowed hard, trying to clear her voice, but it was still thick, if burning with urgency, when she went on at a frantic speed. "We have spoken of the dissension that must rule among the chosen. If Moghedien hides herself so, she must hide from the other chosen. If we take her and give her to them, think of the places we could have. We could be exalted above kings and queens. We could be chosen ourselves." For a moment, one blessed, wonderful moment, the child-faced woman hesitated. Then she shook her head. "You have never known how high to lift your eyes. Who reaches for the sun will be burned. No, I think that I will not be burned for reaching too high. I think that I will do as I'm told, and soften you for Yvonne." Suddenly, she smiled, showing teeth that made her more vulpine. "How surprised he will be when you crawl to kiss his feet." Liandrin started screaming before Sammael even began.
I don't think I have anything to add to that one.
Yeah, it could be like the dramatic reading at the end of a heavy metal album, though, or something.
Bye, Liandrin. Bye, Liandrin.
Cue the screams.
Your life sucks from here on out. Couldn't have happened to a better person.
Oh, Nin, it's not really cold here, not by your standards where you're at. I think it's like in the 40s today. It's raining.
It's like I can click on the space heater for a few minutes just to get my hands warm. Especially in the basement that sort of holds the heat pretty well. It never really gets warm, but it never really gets that cold either.
Yeah. You know what I was thinking about recently? When we lived on the house on Clinton Street for that, first year, I think we turned on the heat all of, a half dozen times or something. We really just kind of used our space heaters in our rooms, when we were going to bed, and that's it.
That had to have been the most mild year I've experienced in Portland.
See, I don't even really remember.
I felt like it didn't get that cold in that winter at all. And then the summer, I just had the windows open also. Of course, it was also right after I moved from Virginia where, you go from, freezing your tits off to swamp ass. Like, those are the two seasons. Like, that's all you got, right? It's fucking cold and then it's hot and it's humid in both situations. Whereas I come out here and it's like perfect almost all the time. And like, you're like, oh my God, it's chilly.
2013? 14? I don't know.
13. Because I moved out here in 12 and then we lived together in 13.
Yeah. I remember my first winter was like, I had just moved here. I didn't know anyone. And I was in like in a tiny rental room. Like, I hadn't met anyone yet. I'd only been here for like a month or something, Didn't know anyone. It's dark. It's wet. It's cold. Guess I'll just go to work and then go home.
Because that's what we're experiencing right now. It's cold and wet and rainy, and it's not really an impediment to doing anything, but it's just kind of gross out. So everyone stays home and bundles up and reads books and listens to podcasts. So hi, everybody.
Paperback here is in like 3 or 4 pieces now. Halfway through the book, I'm thinking about taping it.
Wow, already?
It's because, gosh, I think it was at SpoilerCon, but I like jammed it in my backpack in case I needed it for any reason, like at the live recording or something maybe, which doesn't make a ton of sense. And then it just got jumbled around and it was already like getting a little threadbare, but being knocked around with like all my electronics and stuff just tore it apart.
Fair. And once again, I've been binging Lycanus trilogy. I'm halfway through book 3. Still recommend it. Not done with book 3 yet, but still recommend the trilogy.
That may be the next thing I read. Because I don't have much right now. But Jules bought me a book a while back called, the title is Say Nothing. I forgot the name of the author, but it's nonfiction. A kind of, I don't know what to call it, just a nonfiction account of like first-hand accounts and stuff of the Troubles in Northern Ireland. And kind of traces back like the conflict, but a lot of it is about, first-hand accounts of and things from like the 80s and 60s or around that era.
Yeah, I remember all that violence in Ireland back in the day. It's crazy stuff. It's hard to believe that even happened. It's hard to believe there was a wall there that caused all that violence.
Yeah, I read that a lot of those walls are still there, and a lot of the people that live there don't want the walls gone because they're afraid. They're so afraid of what could happen if you start mixing the communities again. It's super interesting, and I gotta say, I had a really poor understanding of what that was actually about. Before I started reading this, I was just like, generations and generations of conflict. I'm still grasping for words. I don't know. Yeah, I got really into that stuff probably a year or two ago, and I read like Guns, Germs, and Steel by Jared Diamond, and Storm of Steel by Junger, the German guy, who's writing first-hand accounts about being in World War I.
One of the things that I've found very interesting is I've conflicting philosophy of mixing groups versus keeping groups separate. I grew up in America, which is the melting pot, and the idea that like we are all stronger by working together and mixing our ideals and our philosophies and our lives together. But then you look at something like Ireland, where people are afraid to mix. There's this very real downside to mixing different cultures together. It adds stress. It adds conflict points. It can cause one culture to become subsumed inside another. It's a very interesting problem, and one that's not quite as straightforward as I thought when I was younger.
Not at all. It's not straightforward at all.
Because when I was young, I was always like, well, people are people, and we all have the same values, and we all share the same this and that, and like, yes, people are definitely people, and we all do have some shared humanity. But we also have very different cultures.
Yeah.
There's value in those cultures that you don't necessarily want to eliminate or subsume when you mix it with another culture. But then that's how you get new cultures, is you mix two together and you get a third. So, I don't think anyone can say that England isn't a, weird mutant breeding program for all the European cultures. I mean, just look at English.
There's that.
What the hell's going on with English? It doesn't make any sense. I can barely speak it.
It's not really a language. That's what I always say. It's a bunch of languages.
It's a bunch of languages.
It's not hardly a language. Nin, I wanted to respond to you. That a lot of people trace it back to there. Northern Ireland was separated from the rest, and then over time, the different groups were, if you weren't Catholic, but you lived in a Catholic neighborhood, it sure would be hard to find a job, and people might not say why, but that kind of thing builds up years of resentment, and then eventually fighting, and it builds and builds. Yeah, by the British originally, which I found kind of interesting because I learned a lot over the last sad year or two, and just reading about history, that's a lot of why the Middle East is in the state that it is today, because these conquerors divided up land that wasn't divided up that way before, so they broke apart different ethnic groups and put them together in ways that they weren't naturally existing before that. And so some of these conflicts that we see now is that just spilling over. It's the Great Wars still. The borders are still settling 60, 70 years later.
When I look at Africa and you see that it's basically divided into a grid.
Same thing.
That grid.
Yeah,
same thing. That grid is not natural. That's not based on geographic or cultural lines. That's based on somebody in England saying, well, if I lay a grid down over Africa, I can make a bunch of countries about the same size.
Yeah, it's interesting. And then you end up with one ethnic group or religious minority, say, ruling over a religious majority, and that breeds resentment and hate and bullets. Fascinating, but also very real. Israel's another great example. Still settling.
It's amazing how much of our current world and culture and society is still just settling out from what essentially was World War I and II. Everything changed when Germany attacked.
It took me a second, but that was good. And then the Fire Nation attacked.
Thank you for listening to the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. Rate us in the Apple Podcast app or
support us on Patreon. Is that good enough?